Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Simply Done Concierge. Folks, we can make money, but we can't make any more time. And so that's what the folks at Simply Done Concierge are there for you, whether it's meal prep, organizing, packing or unpacking, errand running, pet care, doing laundry. We'll come in the house and do whatever you need. We also help you with your business. So if you feel like your day is overbooked and you need some more time back, that's what we do here at Simply Done Concierge. Go to simplydoneconcierge.com and tell us what we can do for you. I know we can help you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. If you're not familiar with Triangle BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and the surrounding areas. We have 31 chapters and about 525 members each week. Our goal is to help each other grow our business. And our local small business success story today is Carlton White with Visionary Business Brokerage. Carlton is also the visitor host in RD27. Bull City Business Leaders, they meet Thursday mornings at 11:15 a.m. at Parazad Restaurant in Durham. Carlton, good morning and happy New Year. How are you?
You as well.
You've got your to-do list for the year, I'm sure. You're a very organized man, right?
Some days I'm more organized but other than others, but yeah, I would say I'd say that's a check mark plus yes.
There you go. There you go. Visionary Business Brokerage. Okay, so you help people buy or sell businesses.
That's correct.
All right. So January, this is our dream time of the year. By golly, this year I'm going to do this. For somebody looking to buy a business, whether they just came out of the corporate world, they've always been wanting to do it. What are some things for them to think about with regard to not only buying a business, but buying that business?
Well, I would say there's a couple of things they need to look at from the very beginning. And the first thing is to have some sort of an expertise. I think the people that are successful just without any background, without any former, not even formal knowledge, but on the job knowledge, it's pretty tough. And then they also need to have the passion. One thing I tell people all the time is visualize yourself running this business. So in other words, I can see myself getting up in the morning. I can see myself building this business. I can see myself doing those types of things. And if they can do that, that goes a long way towards getting what they need together to be a successful a startup or small business or buying a business or any of those type of things.
And I agree with that mindset because if all of us, and you and I are about 30 minutes older than 30 years old, just barely, and we can look back at our previous jobs, and I think the satisfaction for most people, it may have not been the job that paid the most, but it's the job every morning when we woke up, it's like, I love doing what I do.
No question about it. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I've had three different jobs. This is like my third business I've started and been involved with, and you learn stuff, and a lot of times you don't even realize that you're learning it. And but my first business I was in 20 years. I was 39 years old when I sold it, and I absolutely thought I knew everything. And then I started my second business, and I realized in about 30 minutes that I didn't know anything. I was just like, I didn't know anything. And so you have to kind of start learning.
Mm.
But there were some things that weren't necessarily that would carry over from one business to the other. And then those things, it was kind of strange to where there were little islands in the stream. And I'd say, well, yeah, I do know about that. And I do know about this. And so your ramp up is a lot quicker if you have that background. And then I sold my next business and then started Visionary. Same story. I thought I knew everything. There was nobody everything. And it didn't take me very long to realize that I didn't know anything about this either. But again, it was easy to move some of those skills over from my past experiences. And then you get to where people will ask you a question and it's like, you know the answer. And it's like, I'm not exactly sure how I know the answer to that. I couldn't tell you, but I feel like I know the answer. And that experience, I think, is really, really valuable.
Oh,
And it's something that us, you and I, and all of folks that have a little bit of seasoning in their careers, sometimes discount, sometimes don't really realize the value of that. And so it's been really fun to help people and to be able to give them answers and insights and things that, as you're giving them the insight, it's like, I don't know if this is any value or not. And they're like, wow, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. And so you have to kind of get with that program. But
So
like,
oh, go ahead.
but to your point, those are the most fun contacts that you have,
Yep.
because you're able to help people, and you're not necessarily even charging for
Mhm.
it. It's just a situation where you're just kind of helping somebody out.
Yep. I'm with
And
you on
that's
that.
very satisfying to me.
So I'm going to tease this a couple times before we get to it, but Carlton has one of the most famous movie faces you've never seen. So I'm just going to tease that. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes because it's a wonderful story. Um, with regard to buying a business, that falls in the category. And you and I both work with small business owners, and we try to explain to them, at least from a coaching standpoint, I do, is find out what you can't do or don't want to do and outsource that to an expert. CPA, I mean, normal things come to mind.
Stay in your lane.
One of the things I think where some people don't realize the value of a broker to buy or sell their business, instead of like, yeah, you know what? So I'll put a sign up and people will call and they'll pay me, $1 million for my company that's throwing off $82,000 a year, stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
don't think people realize that folks like you are out there to help them get the top dollar for their business.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And when I my little elevator speech that I make, I call it the 3 C's that we offer. We offer convenience, we offer confidentiality, and we offer the ability to be confident that you're getting a good deal. And the first two, the convenience and the confidentiality, are really, really important to small business owners, because they're in there working, and most of the time they're really actively involved in their business, and they're looking at it saying, well, if I stop growing my business to sell the business, then that's not going to be very helpful when I sell the business, because it's not going to be worth as much. So we'll approach those business owners and say, look, this is a situation where we'll do the listing for you, we'll vet the prospective buyers, we'll wade through all the mess, we'll make all those types of decisions for you. And then the only people that you'll talk to are really qualified buyers that really have some money and really are interested. And then of course do that in a confidential way, because there's no advantage to a business that everybody knows is for sale. There's easy to think of a bunch of people, from employees to suppliers to competitors, that would love to know that your business is for sale for reasons that are not in your best interest as the business owner. So we take this confidentiality thing very, very seriously, and we do all that we can do to keep that. And then by showing that we can acquire the best deal for folks, we can show that confidence that they can get a better deal. But and everybody wants the best deal. That's the easy one. But the convenience and the confidentiality, a lot of times, are at least as important as getting that good deal.
Yeah, because the last group of people you usually want to know you're selling your business are your clients, and more importantly, probably your staff.
Yep, yep, that's
Because then
exactly right.
I've been through a merger. When I was working at Turner Sports in Atlanta, I was working for the Cartoon Network at the time. And this was right when Turner and Time Warner were talking about merging, selling, whatever name you want to put on it, depending on how
Right,
you looked at it, is what you
right.
called it. And every week is like, oh, no, no, everything's going to be fine. And then next week, no, 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 they're moving everybody to New York. And then the next week, no, 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 everybody's staying in Atlanta. And it can be stressful for employees if they know their company's up for sale.
And it's not certainly not good for productivity. Just
No,
as
not
a
at all.
it just even if it's nobody cares, but they're just spending an hour a day chatting amongst themselves. That's an hour that they're not doing what they're supposed to do to further the business. And kind of related to that, I tell tell my people that are looking to sell, kind of traditionally, you look at 3 years of sales, 3 years of tax returns, blah, blah, blah. And the buyers, they want to look at that. But what they really want to see is the last 3 months,
Mm,
the last 6 months,
yep.
because what it did 3 years ago, and especially with the pandemic,
Oh, yeah.
it was 3 years ago. You know, I can't really, I can't get really confident about those numbers, whether they're really high or really low. I can't get my head around that, but I can look and see what it's done the last 3 months.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you're spending time and losing productivity and not doing the client service that you need to do, or whatever, that's certainly not a very good foot to put forward for us as brokers, which broker and salesperson, I think, is the same thing. And so I tell my people, I need to be your salesperson. So I need to know these things because I need to use that when I'm out selling your business. And you have to do some fancy footwork if you look at that last 3 month
Yeah.
number and it's kind of going in the tank.
Yep. I'm with you on that. Always like to know how people come up with the name of their company. How'd you come up with Visionary Business Brokerage?
Well, I think this is getting to be a little cliched, but I really think of myself as a visionary. I always have. And for better or worse, a lot of times it's worse, but it is what it is. And I think that a visionary is somebody that looks at a problem and tries to figure out an answer and is looking at the long term, and they really want to project that type of an attitude. And so that's why I call it visionary, just because of that.
I like that. And doing research on you, it's funny when we get to a certain age, we don't look back and realize, wow, I've had a couple of different careers. But you, like you mentioned earlier, you kind of had three because you had White Optical Laboratories for about 17 years, according to your info, then about 26 years with Wells Fargo.
Yeah, right.
Can I assume math is somewhere involved in your family lineage?
Well, thank goodness for computers is all I'd say to that. Even at White Optical, that was the early age of computers, and so we didn't use them as much as I'm sure that industry does now. But yeah, I'd say I'd have to be comfortable with math, put it that way.
But in the banking world, though, you held a couple of different roles, and that's a different world because people money's personal. I mean,
Yeah.
whether you're talking, $1,000 or $1,000,000, it's personal. So you got to build
Oh
up
yeah.
some trust with folks in that world, don't you?
Yeah, I'd say add a zero, take off a zero. It doesn't matter. It's everybody gets an intimate relationship. And my wife didn't like me saying this, but I would say that in a lot of instances, people's money was more important than their kids. Now, I don't say they want their kids to anything bad to happen
Mm,
to them, but on the other hand, if the parents have money and they're out there and they're maybe retired or getting ready to retire, and the kid comes and says, "I need some money," you know, they're going to go, "I'm sorry, I mean, I
yeah,
can't give it to you because I need it." and
yeah,
so and so when it gets that emotional to where they're saying, "Gosh, we've got to do better in the market, or we've got to do better risk parameter, or whatever their situation is," it is top notch importance. It really is.
Did you have to move during that Wells Fargo run of your career?
Well, it was kind of interesting because when I took that job, it was actually Prudential base,
Mm,
and
wow.
and I was a stockbroker. But the base name was dropped pretty soon after I joined, like a month or so. So I wasn't Prudential base, but just a second. And then we became Prudential Securities, and we were owned by the Prudential Insurance Company. But there was that business it was local. There was a local branch, and that my friend was the branch manager of the local branch, and that was how I got that connection. And they had a really great training program. We spent a lot of time in New York training and stuff. It was a great experience, really a super company. And then they one day my I made all this up just to tell you, but I had this vision that there was a whole bunch of Prudential insurance people and a whole bunch of Wachovia bank people had some kind of a meeting, and the Prudential Insurance never really knew what to do with stockbrokers. They knew what to do with life insurance agents, but stockbrokers are not life insurance agents. They're different animals. And then Wachovia had an outfit that they called Wachovia Securities, which was the genesis of Wheat First Securities out of Richmond. And they bought that up. And then I had this vision that the Wachovia people didn't really know what to do with the Wheat First people. and so they're probably, drinking, $1 zillion a bottle of scotch somewhere. And they said, why don't we merge these two together, put these groups together, push them over here to the side, and let somebody else worry about them. And that was the genesis of Wachovia Securities, which, you talk about selling or merging or buying or whatever. It was some kind of a arrangement that they made that was the combination of Prudential Securities and Wachovia Securities at the time pushed together. And that made the Wachovia Securities brand a nationwide brand because they were regional. Wachovia Securities was Southeastern pretty exclusively. And then back in 07 and 08, as everybody has really fond memories of those times, I know, where Wachovia on Thursday was doing great, and on Monday they were out of business. And then Wells Fargo swooped in and bought Wachovia Bank, and then that was how we got the name Wells Fargo. So I worked for Prudential, Wachovia, and Wells Fargo, and I never stood up in a different place. I had the exact same chair.
Did you keep all the different business cards you collected through?
I should. I think I've got some somewhere, and I threatened several times, to have the little thing, the frame, with all the business cards. And because I had some of them like for a month, they try one out or something. So I probably had like 6 different business cards and the same telephone. It was a black plastic telephone that I started making cold calls on my first day of work, and I had that almost till the end. At the very end, Wells came in and they had the new IPP phones and stuff, and so they took my black plastic telephone away from me.
Now
that was a terrible day.
Yeah, I know. I thought you were going to make it all the way through. Now you have certifications in series 3, 7, and 8, and I won't go into detail what they are.
Right.
That must mean you're a pretty good test taker.
Yeah, that's true. My wife says I'm too good, I'm a savant or something, but because I'm surely not smart enough to pass all those tests. But that was part of the SEC thing to have them. And I would tell my young brokers back, because I was involved in management a lot of the time with Wells, and I'd say, there's only one reason why they give you a certification, and that's so they can take it away. So just never ever forget that. And then it's work. It worked. You couldn't work in the business without those series 7s or 6s, or we had 7s. Some people have 6s, and 3 was something, I don't know, commodities or something, and 8 was like to be a branch manager. But they but the only reason they gave them to you is so they could take them away. And so be careful.
Okay. So can I assume you had pretty good grades going through high school and college because you were a good test taker?
Oh, I was definitely an underachiever. I played sports and I liked girls and I did all that.
Enough said.
Study.
Enough said. Yeah. Class, you just tried to fit in between all the other things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was talking to one of my grandkids the other day, and I said, she's 16, and I said, and she rolls her eyes at old Pat, but I said, if I could do it all over again, wouldn't it be wonderful to go back and really be interested in learning stuff? Because I was just doing the bare minimum, whatever I had to do to get the grade, and whether I learned anything or not, I didn't really care.
Yep.
And now here I'm doing all I can do to do podcasts and read books and read this and look at that, trying to learn stuff. And now, my brain's getting full of stuff. So so I have to take some stuff out and throw it away to get some new stuff in there.
Yep.
And back in the day, I had plenty of capacity. I could have learned that junk a long time ago. But I guess that's how the world works.
It's supply and demand on information up there, right? Excuse me.
So my advice to her is, please learn something.
Yeah.
Please learn something.
She's, in about 30 years, she'll go, I should have listened to him.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. I'm sure she's just like You can hear her eyes roll,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
16-year-old girl, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Like, look, I hear that from my parents. I'm supposed to come to you as a safe place. So
Right.
I don't need a lecture from you. I just need playtime,
Exactly. Exactly.
So, before we get to your iconic movie role,
Okay.
you and your wife, Susan, 2
Right.
kids, 6 grandkids, which, by the way, grandparent club is the best club ever.
Oh, no
But I always
kidding.
like to ask people on the show that are married, so how did you and Susan meet, and do you both tell the story the same way?
Well, she was from Georgia, and she moved to North Carolina I think she was in the ninth grade or eighth grade or something like that. And she says, this is her story. We rode the same bus and I threw a spider on her. That's her story.
Mm,
My story is I had no idea who she was until we got to high school. And she was a majorette in the marching band. I thought she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, but she was a year older than me. And so I was just dying to go out with her. And she finally let me agreed to go out with me on a date. And then she dumped me. And then I came back again. And long story short, she dumped me 3 times, but I was persistent. And I think our wedding anniversary coming up is going to be 48 this
wow,
summer.
cool.
So finally I won the day.
And
And,
so,
I still deny the spider story. I absolutely deny the spider story.
did you ever throw a spider?
No, no, I've never thrown a spider anywhere. I think it was somebody else that threw the spider on her. I think she got mixed up.
Then once you did, get that official first date, where was that first date?
It was a dance at a church that that I was involved with, but she wasn't. And it was like the youth fellowship thing. And I invited her to the dance and she said yes. And that was a good day.
Mhm,
It was a great day.
and where was
But
this?
that was 1969. No, no, no. I'm wrong on that. Our first date was we both played in the band and we both made what they call the all-state band, which was kind of like an all-star band thing.
Mhm,
And they had a weekend. And actually, ironically, we lived in Greensboro and that band event was in Durham. So our first, and I called that a date, but it was kind of a gangsome date.
mhm,
But
yep,
that was the first time she dumped me.
okay.
And then I couldn't get her to go out with me again until that dance, because that dance was I think in 1970. So it was 1969 was our first official date.
So, was it your dance skills that saved the relationship, Carlton? I'm missing
I'm not
something here,
sure.
right?
I think she was so embarrassed. I was such a big gawky dude. I'm really, really tall.
Yeah.
And I was really, and I'm not I was never very coordinated, but I was really uncoordinated in 1969. So I think she was, I think she was I don't know, it was a mercy date or something.
She probably told you, "If you stop dancing with me in public, I'll go out with you in private," right?
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it.
The grandfather role is wonderful, isn't it?
Well, I told my kids long ago, back my oldest is 16 and it was probably 15 years ago. I told both of them, I said, I really didn't want kids. I'm just confessing.
Yeah.
I wanted grandkids. I said, but I realized early on that you can't get there from here.
Mm,
You have
yeah,
to kind of
yeah.
slog through it. So 25, 27, 28, whatever it is, you're a slog
Yep.
that you got to make it through to get to this grandparent heaven.
Oh, yeah, man. I remember one day we got a call from our son. We have 2 in Charlotte and 1 on the way in Lakeland, Florida. And our oldest son has the 2 grandkids in Charlotte. And one day, Oliver, my grandson, who will be 4.5 this month, would just, I mean, a meltdown of epic proportions for the first time. Okay. You remember those days, right?
Oh yeah.
And my son called us and we're just talking and he was just, oh, this, whatever. My wife and I are like, all right, we guys hang in there. We love you. Bye.
Yeah, right.
Because we can just hang up the phone.
That is the greatest.
Well,
That
we've
is the
been there,
greatest.
what are we
Oh
gonna,
yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
get through it. You can't, there's no
Got
books
to.
on, they probably are 1,000 books on how to survive a meltdown from a 2-year-old, but till you're there, nah, and no knowledge will help.
Nope. Nope. You just got to
Yep. Yep.
ride the wave.
I hear you, but it's great. Yeah, the grandkid, we had both of the 2 of them were in Dallas with us, and my 4.5-year-old grandson. we're always outside playing something, and then my
Mhm.
4-month-old granddaughter, I just couldn't hold her enough. I can kiss on her 'cause I've s Carlton, we have so much to tell them, don't we? So
Yeah,
much knowledge to impart on them. We just, we need more time.
yeah, no more time. There's
Nobody bel
always
nobody in my family believes I'm telling her anything worth listening to, but I'm telling her stuff, so
yeah, yeah. And they get so busy now
yeah.
too, because they're ours are 16, 15, 13, 12, and 2 nines.
Wow.
And so, those they get to those teen years. I mean,
Yep.
they're just it's just so much going on.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now the oldest one has a driver's license, and so,
Mm.
she's off in another world and looking at colleges and all that stuff. Her dad is just distraught, X10 on that deal.
Oh, yeah. I remember those days.
Yeah,
Alright, so your iconic movie role is national and global, but it's very important to the city of Durham. If you
yeah,
remember Bull Durham, remember when Crash Davis walked to the mound and told Nuke LaLoosh to throw the ball at the mascot? And he throws the ball at the mascot fell down. That mascot, none other than our guest today, Carlton White. How about that? Okay, so first of all, you're 6'7". Let's talk
6'8",
about that
yeah,
in a second. But I
yeah,
did learn I watched a interview with, I think it's WRAL, when I was doing some research on this, that you were the city of Durham mascot, which led to that role. And they initially called looking for the head of a bull for a costume, right?
yep. The costume was the star.
Yeah.
I was just the meat that was inside the costume. And I was 6'8", actually.
Yeah.
I think they said somewhere I was 6'7", but I was
Okay.
6'8". And they didn't have anybody that could fit into it. That's my that was my hook.
How did you get to be the city of Durham mascot?
Well, it was when we first moved to town, I got involved with the JCs, Junior Chamber of Commerce, and so we did some stuff with the chamber, and they had this costume, and it was made specifically for a play, I think over in Chapel Hill, Playmakers or something, and they donated it to the city, and they had a guy that was wearing it, and then I came to town, and then the chamber said, if we ever need somebody, would you be willing to do it? And I said, oh yeah, sure. So the first time they called me, it was a 4th of July festival out at the Park, and I think it was 106 degrees, and
Yes,
the
it
humidity
was.
was like 100%, and that costume was like wearing a rug. It was so hot,
Yep.
and so, but I told him I'd do it. So I go to the guy's house, I pick up the costume. This is the night before. I go out there, and I never gave I never gave the costume back to the guy. So, so that's how I acquired it. And then they would call me occasionally to do ribbon cuttings. I was
Mhm.
always in the Durham parade. I do little things like that. And then the Durham kind of got too sophisticated to be the Bull City, and we became the city of medicine,
Yeah.
or and then I think we got designated an all-American city, and so the powers that be thought that Bull City thing was kind of outdated. So the costume literally hung in my office for years, and no, they never called anymore
Wow.
until I get this call one morning, and they said they were in town to do this movie, and they understood through the chamber that I had a costume. And I said, yeah, I do. And they said, well, can we use it? And I said, well, sure, yeah, come on by and get it. So that afternoon, a couple of guys came and got it, took it off. Hour or so later, they called and they said, man, this is a big costume. I said, yeah. And they said, would you be willing to be in the movie? I said, no, I don't have time. Don't have any time. And then the next morning, I get another call from somebody else. And this person said that they were in charge of the casting or something. And the director had seen this costume, and he's got some really great parts for it. And we'd really love for you to do it, and blah, 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 blah. And then she said the magic word. She said, we'll pay you.
There we
And then it
go.
was like,
There we
okay,
go.
I can do it. I'll
All
buy some time.
all of a sudden your calendar freed up, didn't it?
That's exactly right. And so that was it. So I became Durham people will recognize Woolly Bull. That's the bull
Mm,
now. And people say, well, you were Woolly Bull, and I have to correct them. I say, well, no, I wasn't Woolly. Woolly's my son.
there you go.
My name was Brody. Brody Bull was the name of the bull that was the city mascot.
Then the
And then
first.
now Bull City, all this Bull City
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
is
Now it's
kind of
back.
back.
Yeah.
It's back. So
I've kinda liked the
so
name, yeah.
so every time I see this, I feel like I was a big part of that. So
Then you get the call. So when they decide to pay you and you decide to free up your calendar and accept the role, where do you go and when? I had a friend of mine at the taping. I don't know if it's one night or a couple nights they were there, and it was rainy and cold.
yeah, well, most of all the things I did were at the ballpark, and we talked about in Durham. We talked about the old ballpark and
Yep.
the new ballpark. Well, all this was the new ballpark didn't exist, so it was all done at the old ballpark, and it was they filmed there. I think about 6 days or maybe 7 days, and they do what they call a casting call, and it was a really a low budget movie,
Mhm.
so they had to be strategic in their casting calls. So what they do is if all their shoots were going to be close-ups, they would not call very many people, and so they would schedule all the close-ups like for the same day.
Oh.
And then if they were going to do the wide angle stuff, they needed more people in the stands.
Mm.
And so they'd call more people. Well, they didn't know, the casting people didn't know when the director wanted the bull to be there. So I got called every day. And
Alright.
so a lot of days I got there and never put the suit on because they didn't want the bull. So I would just be in the background. And so and the way they shoot them, if you and I were talking, they'd shoot you talking to me
Mm.
back to back to back to back to back, and then they'd reset and go around the other side, and it'd be me talking to you back to back to back to back to back, and then the editor does their magic and they make it look like we're talking to each other. Well, what they have to do with the crowd is obviously they've got to move the crowd.
Yep.
So the crowd's in the background, and then the crowd moves. So if you're really sharp, you could see that it was the same people, but we're on both sides of the stadium at the same time. So
Now, when did you know, and also in the story that you were hit 9 times, and we'll get to that in a second. When
right.
did you know you were going to be hit by a baseball?
The day I walked in there, and the director said, "Carlton, stand right here,
Okay.
and this won't hurt."
And Tim Robbins actually threw the ball?
No, no. Tim Robbins is really a nice guy. Really was, really is. I guess he still is. But at the time, he was kind of a rookie. Nobody knew him much in the
Yep.
movie business or in the movie. But he couldn't hit the side of a barn with a baseball. He just was terrible. But they had the guy, Tommy Green was his name, and I think he pitched in the Orioles organization or
Yeah.
something. I don't think he ever made it to the majors, but he was the one that threw the ball, and he could throw it.
And it hurt, or you felt it enough, right?
Well, the truth is, it was not a real baseball. It was kind of a prop baseball,
Okay.
same size and color and everything, but it was mushy. It wasn't hardball. And he could throw pretty good, but the target was the head, but he missed several times. And so all they told me to do was say, when you feel it hit you, fall down.
Yeah, that
So
was
I
my
said,
next question.
okay.
Yeah, you do that. And also in the interview, you were laughing with whoever the reporter was about you get paid in movies for speaking parts, and you didn't have a speaking part, but they dubbed in the groan when you got hit, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if groan is a speaking part or not. I never did figure that out. But it didn't matter because I'd signed a contract. Every day I'd come in, I have to sign a contract that said that all they're going to pay me was $90 or something a day or something was what they paid. Which back then
Oh,
90
yeah.
bucks was
Yeah.
pretty good.
And how
And they
long?
but they did pay me that day. I got a bonus. I think they paid me $90 times 9,
Okay.
$90 for everyone. But then later on I learned that if they had to have gotten a real stunt person to do that, that would have busted their budget. So they
Yeah.
were so they were happy to have me take one for the team.
Yeah, because I've heard Ron Shelton, the director, in an interview that a lot of studios passed on it,
Oh
and
yeah.
that Costner stayed with him the whole time to try to get it made, and then finally, I don't know what studio did it, but they decided to do it, but they knew that their budget was limited.
Well, the studio story is it was the guy's name was Tom Mountain. He was with Universal, and I think he was one of the main producers of Animal House.
Ah,
and and that was kind of his claim to fame. And he got up with this Ron Shelton, who was the director. He was a friend of Ron's, and Ron wrote the script and all that stuff. And then Ron was peddling it around, and he ran into Tom Mountain. Tom Mountain said, "We'll see if we can get this thing done." And so he and Ron were the ones going around, and everybody was telling him no. But Tom Mount's father was Lillard Mount, who was with Mount White, which was the white shoe law firm in Durham. So Tom Mount was from Durham.
okay.
And that's how the whole thing got to Durham, was that Tom Mount was the connection. And he said, well, I know the perfect place we can do this is my hometown is Durham. And they've got a old A-ball stadium that's picturesque. It's downtown. And Durham at that time was kind of gritty, and it was kind of the right setting for all that, went on in the movie. And so that's how we got to Durham, was
Okay.
that connection.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Did
which is
you
pretty cool. And you mentioned something about Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner had done several movies. He'd done No Way Out, I think, Silverado, something. A lot of people didn't know, but he was in the movie The Big Chill. If you
Oh,
know The Big
he was the
Chill,
dead guy. Yep.
he was the dead guy.
Yep.
And so the only thing you saw was the cuff of
Mhm.
his shirt in the
Yep.
casket, because they filmed him in flashbacks. And then I think once they were doing the editing, they figured those flashbacks were kind of tedious, so they cut them all out. So
Oh,
uh, his face wasn't in the movie a single time. But anyway, he really liked the script,
mhm.
and Kevin Costner is a pretty good athlete,
Oh, yeah.
and so he really wanted to. He loved that story. He loved the fact that he was going to play a baseball player, and he just really, really loved the script. But at the time, he was getting, and these numbers might not be exactly right, but one of the producers was telling me the story, so I feel like the accuracy of it is close enough. But at the time, his guarantee was $1 million,
Wow.
that he got $1 million for doing a movie, and the whole budget for the movie was like 8 million. So they
Oh,
couldn't afford to pay him $1 million, because, and so he agreed to work for $500,000 plus a couple of points.
yep.
And points in the movie business, if it's a hit,
Yep.
that's where they really ring the bell. And you can see there's probably 24/7, 365 Bull Durham's playing somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the checks that Kevin Costner's received from Bull Durham, I mean, I'm sure that's more money than I've ever made in the history of me.
So
That he just gets that. Just
we can assume you're not getting residuals as the Bull
No,
mascot.
that was that contract thing. That's Excuse me. I signed the contract saying no residuals.
Okay. And what job in real life did you have at that time?
That was when I had my optical lab,
Okay.
and and a lot of the shooting was the schedule was 5 to 5. And so when we were shooting during the daytime, it was 5 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon.
Okay.
With those night scenes, and most of the games were at night,
Yep.
we had to report at 5 p.m. and we worked until 5 a.m.
That's what I thought you meant when you said 5 to 5, yeah.
Yeah. So the days were 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. The nights were 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. So I'd go to work. I'd come home. I wouldn't go home. I'd go straight to the ballpark, get there at 5 o'clock, sign my little contract, have my little chicken sandwich. I think some chicken outfit
Yeah.
was had their picture on the outfield fence, so they supplied chicken sandwiches. And then I'd work out there. And the deal was, you'd be there at 5 o'clock, you'd sign in, and you said you'd get paid $90 a day, and a day was from 5 o'clock until they said that's a wrap.
Okay.
And sometimes, I think one day we started at 5 and at 7 o'clock, that's a wrap.
Wow.
So we got paid. Sometimes it was 4 o'clock in the morning before they wrapped. So you just didn't know,
Yeah.
because you
Did
didn't know
you
what they had planned.
did you get any time with any of the actors on screen? Not well, the ones that are prominent on screen, did you get any time with them off screen?
Yeah, yeah, especially Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner was so friendly. They had, these little Winnebago like trailers over there in the background that you couldn't see for him. But I don't remember him ever going into that trailer. I think when he was taking breaks, he was sitting with everybody and goofing around with the ball players and interacting with the people. And I remember I told somebody at the time, I said, I didn't know who Kevin Costner was because I was not that into it at that time. But I said that guy right there is going to be very successful because he understands exactly how who writes his checks, and it's the people that write the checks.
Yep.
And then that's come to pass because Kevin Costner's this Yellowstone thing is huge.
Oh yeah.
And but he's had some turkeys, and if he'd been a jerk as he was going up, you have a couple of turkeys, there's nobody's going to help you on the way down.
Yeah, and I always like listening to interviews with either actors or songwriters, and something that just blew up, something they did just went, like Bull Durham. And they say, "Did you ever see this kind of success happening?" And usually it's like, "Nah, we weren't really. We knew it was funny, but you just don't know." And looking at the budget of this movie and them going through, however many movie houses they had to go to get so many iconic lines out of one movie made for $8 million.
I think they knew because somewhat because it was $8 million to make it, and then they spent I think $10 million promoting it.
Okay.
So I think once they had it done, I
Mhm.
think some people recognized that it was a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty classic story. It's not it's
Yeah.
not it's a classic story, but and of course I'm very very biased because it's the best movie I've ever been in, and so and so, but to me it's like it should have won 5 Academy Awards,
Yeah.
especially for supporting barnyard animal.
Yeah. Now,
But
when did you see the movie for the first time?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When did you see the movie for the first time?
They came back to Durham and they did a premiere event, and it was at the Carolina Theater,
Yeah.
and they invited some of the people that had been involved, and so that was a big deal. That was a
Did
real big
did
deal, and
they
that was
introduce
fun.
you as the mascot who got hit
No,
9
they
times?
didn't. They didn't really introduce it because nobody was there much because they really had they had the big deal out in Los Angeles where all the people
Yep.
came, but it was but no, I was kind of low profile.
Did you know anybody else, any friends or contacts of folks you knew that ended up being an extra in the stand?
Oh, that's a good question. After the fact, I did, but no. I mean, it was just me coming from work, just you know, had a little side gig there
And the
for
glamour
a
of that
week,
role was you sign in at 5 p.m. and you just sit and wait, right?
sit and wait. And I met a lot of people there because you sit a lot
Oh, yeah.
and talk, and everybody's cutting up and having a big time. So but the longer ago it was, the more fun it was.
Yeah. I
Because
hear you.
that's a working they work, and everything is based on they rent all the cameras and all the lights and all that stuff, and there's not a lot of messing around among the staff people, and they're pretty serious, and they don't they're and of course the director's is the king god, and they're all trying to make sure the director smiles on them because they're looking for that next job.
Mhm.
And because Ron Shelton, I think, did White Men Can't Jump. He did Tin Cup, and
Yep.
a lot of the same people. Like Kevin Costner was in Tin Cup, and I think a lot of the photographer people and sound people and all that kind of went along with him to those next projects. So that's their business, So they gotta do that
Where is the costume now?
in my garage.
What are you gonna do with it?
I'm trying to donate it to the Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm trying to figure out how to make that work.
Do they so you've not been in contact with them?
Well, I tried to one time, but there were some circumstances that it was they had I can't remember which anniversary. It was an anniversary of the movie.
Yep.
Excuse me. And they were gonna do a big deal on it up there. And then there was I can't remember. There was some kind of protest or something, and it got messed up. And so I just kind of stopped.
Appro
I'm trying to be very political in this answer,
Yeah.
as you can
I
tell.
sense that, yeah. Yeah. And you can actually say no bulls were harmed in the filming of this movie, right?
No bulls were harmed. But the truth is, they had some really cool scenes. Of my best scenes ended up on the cutting room floor. Says every star. They had one where I was in the line buying hot dogs. They had some where I had this little umbrella. I'd walk around in the rain.
Oh,
They had a lot of
nice.
cool things that they and I'll tell you this, and I think this is the really interesting part to me is how that movie business works.
Yep.
And it's work. It is not the glamour that you think. And there's a lot of politics and there's a lot of mess and a lot of stuff that's probably not family friendly that goes on. But when that camera is on you and they're shining those lights on you and everybody's coming up making sure your hair looks just right and making sure your costume is good and there's 5 or 6 people, wow. I mean, that is really some heavy stuff. And I can see where people just it's almost like a drug. It's just so exciting to do that. And then I would imagine, I mean, I look at this bull costume and I take my head off for like I tell people don't reach for the popcorn or you'll miss it. And there's a with a whole lot more hair and darker hair and a lot less poundage version of me. And just to see yourself up there on that big screen, pretty sweet.
What do the grandkids think about it?
Well, we hadn't let them watch it yet because they're not old enough.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I say, there are two versions. There's the movie version and the TV version.
Yeah.
And if you're watching it with your mother-in-law, make sure you're watching the TV version because you're
Yes.
going to get embarrassed.
Yeah. Now, did your kids, throw that out to their friends to be more popular that, "Hey, has your dad been in a blockbuster movie?"
That's a good question, Mike, and I don't know the answer to that. I really they might have been just too embarrassed to say anything. I don't know.
Oh,
But
s yeah, but
it was 1987 or something,
yeah.
or 86 or something. It's a long time ago, and it's amazing that people still bring that up to
Oh,
me.
the
That
legs that movie has,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's my 15 minutes of fame.
Hey, beautiful thing. So if anybody watching this has not seen Bull Durham, you have to now see it because Carlton was the famed bull who got whacked in the head with a ball, which
Right.
again was a hilarious line. Just throw it at the bull. At the bull. Trust me.
Yeah.
So-
And I'm in the credits, but you have to watch till the very last one. It goes through everything. Those little pictures of
yep.
the thing all the way to the end, all the way in, all the way in, all the way in. I think it's the last one. It says special thanks to Carlton White Bull mascot. So
Nice.
so that was the if you it was a very literally the last frame of the last frame of the last frame.
Did they send you a copy of the movie?
Oh heck no. I had to buy one. There's a low budget.
Yep. There you go. They needed the money, right? They paid you $810. They needed seven back, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
All right, Carlton, this has been a blast. I love the way you embrace the role,
Yeah.
and just you love talking about it because I put you on the spot before to tell. I was like, hey, because I'll tell people when you call Carlton, you got to ask him why he's famous, and they're like, what? I said, trust me, you'll appreciate it. So a couple of people called back, it's like, man, what a great story. So,
Well, I'm
uh,
waiting for the next role for a barnyard animal.
yeah,
I might have to get a new agent or something because
well,
I haven't gotten
yeah.
any sense.
Yeah, maybe you need a new agent, right? But
Right.
you did say you were personally available for Bull Durham, the sequel, but the lead actors weren't as available, right?
Yeah, that's right. They moved up. Annie Savoy, which is Susan Sarandon.
Yep,
They're big time now, and Tim Robbins, and even Robert Wool. He was the
yep.
he was the pitching coach or something,
He's funny.
and
Yep,
he was really great
yep.
too. I need to give him a shout out
Good.
because he was super with the crowd. He got it too. He knew
Yep.
the school.
Yeah, I've seen some of his comedy stuff before, and he's good. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so give us a quick tip. Somebody wants to buy or sell a business this year. What's one or two things they need to get in order first?
Well, the number one thing is make sure your finances are in order. No funny money, no crazy stuff going on. That you can and we can see all the expenses are expensed and all the sales are sales.
Yeah.
That's a word. The other thing is you need to make sure that you're doing all you can do to replace yourself because that's really the number one issue that buyers have is if I buy this business and this person's working 90 hours a week and it won't go on without them, that's going to be hard to sell, hard to sell that business. So as hard as it is, you need to be thinking about, I got to replace myself. I've got to have a management team, a strong management team that we can tout as being willing to take that business and operationally keep moving it on. And then the new owner, all they need to do is provide the vision and the financing and the overall running of the business, and not the day-to-day operation.
Yep.
I'd say those are the two most important things.
Good. All right. So we appreciate the tips on that and the stories on Bull Durham. Again, most people would like, okay, I'll do that role, right? Just to be in a movie of that stature. So
Right.
glad you're part of
Right.
that. Glad we have the connection. We could share those stories today. And
Yeah, well,
Carlton,
thanks, Mike.
thanks for being on the show. And we'll see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
Thank you, Mike.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.